Beautiful. Hello, everyone. I'm assuming my screen sharing is working correctly. Um, Perfect. I saw thumbs up. Awesome. So online, I'm always tagged as Pastoral Hair. So feel free to call me that. That is also fine. But Kelly Woods is my, I suppose, IRL name. So I co-anchor a community alongside Rev, who presented a paper yesterday, which was really awesome. And together we try and create this digital ecosystem with a community that gathers solely online, and we stream together and game together, explore life together, and we're pretty much a gaming church. So we love it, and that is who we are. We're gamers who also want to explore faith and spirituality together. I am also a lifelong academic, which is scary to say because I am 35 and hopefully there's a lot of life left to live. So we'll see how that goes. But today I'm going to be exploring the topic of liberating escapism and how imagination, creativity, and particularly gaming have become powerful tools in navigating spiritual formation in the digital age. And so this this presentation looks at the intersection of digital theology, identity, and creativity. And it's shaped by a belief that their spiritual meaning is not confined to our physical spaces, nor limited to traditional practices. However, gaming might not be very far away from these practices at all. And so I'm really excited to explore that with you a little bit today. So the boundary between the physical and the digital is increasingly irrelevant when it comes to spiritual identity. As Ilva, Levin, and Dan Mamlok suggest, spiritual realities can be deeply meaningful even if they exist only in the imagination. The digital is not another world, and it's actually part of this one and a growing part of how people experience meaning, community, and identity. Cyberspace is not some separate or lesser domain. The digital is embodied. It affects how we work, learn, and worship. And for many, daily life is digital life. Our ontological existence is now entangled with digital tools or connection. So to speak of spiritual formation today means speaking about apps, avatars, streaming liturgies, and also gaming. Not all people experience digital connection equally. We're not just witnessing a generational shift in how people use digital tools, but rather we're seeing a shift in the concept of what it even means to be. Our ontological existence has fundamentally changed. From previous generations, identity was formed through tangible interactions, places of worship, and ritual. And the digital was at most an add-on, a convenience to that engagement. But for generations growing up with their social development framed by the digital age, digital presence is real presence. A person's sense of self is shaped by their participation online in shared digital worlds and also across platforms where imagination and interaction are core to identity. To be clear, this does not mean their existence is less real. It means that the boundary between virtual and real no longer holds the same meaning. It's almost becoming an obsolete distinction. This doesn't make us inauthentic. It means that we're living in a world where spirituality, selfhood, and sacred meaning are increasingly mediated through our digital interactions. So what does this have to do with escapism? It's often misunderstood and written off as avoidance, immaturity, and even weakness in some places. However, escapism is healthy if it helps in our daily function and our pursuit of our goals. Whether it's passive or active forms of escapism, the neurological and developmental benefits are massive. So I've just popped them up there for you to read. I won't be reading them out, but we have both active self-expansion forms of escapism as well as passive self-suppression forms. And usually these are held up against each other. However, both of them contribute to something that's actually positive in spaces of neurological and developmental benefits. We can also experience these in gaming. Sorry, my slides just decided to have a party. So it can be a creative act, a way of stepping in what might be and not just fleeing what is. More than just entertainment, games invite players to wrestle with moral dilemmas, make sacrificial choices, imagine utopias, and confront evils. They aren't just mechanics, these are spiritual exercises. They allow people to explore who they are and what exists beyond them. And I don't mean engaging in specific Christian games or using digital realms as tools to explore scripture or Bible stories. Rather, the very structure and forms of games themselves, so their mechanics, their narratives, and their immersive worlds, are already entangled with the core movements of spiritual formation. Whether a single-player quest or shared multiplayer experiences, gamers are constantly engaging with questions of identity, justice, healing, and redemption. In gaming, especially sandbox or role-playing formats, players are invited to co-create worlds. They exercise agency, ethics, design, and imagination. These are acts of spiritual exploration, and I might suggest that it could even be a form of interactive liturgy. So why does this even matter? Because we are in a moment of cultural and spiritual reconstruction. The exponential curve of technological change is reshaping how we learn, relate, and believe. However, digital culture, especially in the realm of spiritual formation, connection, and faith development, is often seen as a threat, a distraction, or simply overlooked as a vital space of spiritual exploration, particularly when it comes to gaming. So we need to ask, what is already happening in these spaces? Here is the core claim that I want to make, that gaming is already a space of spiritual formation. Through character creation, quests, role-play, storytelling, world building, community connection, people are engaging in self-discovery. Whether it's conscious or not, people are engaging in practices that resemble confession, pilgrimage, lament, hope, and moral discernment. So to make this more concrete, what I have done here is I've actually developed some game cards. So if you guys might be like me or a few of our handful of people here from Australia, we are gamers. We have character cards that help us navigate who we are when we come to games, particularly in role-playing games. So I've actually drawn up a few for you guys to have a look at, but I want to explain them first so you can see what information we're trying to grasp from them when we get through. So first things first is I've had a look at the gameplay temperament of some games. And so these are the mechanics of a game and how they function. There are 5 key domain areas looking at gameplay, and usually these are quite normal and succinct genres when it comes to gaming. So they go from expansive and emergent, so traits of nature, harmony, and growth. And then we get things like dark and submersive, so spiritual traits of ambition, complexity, morality, and a lot of shadow, that scary side of gaming that sometimes people love. Not me, I avoid that one like the plague. And we also have intense, reactive, strategic and rhythmic, and narrative and emotional. And these pull at things and I suppose core resonances that we try and engage with spiritual formation. So justice, peace, order, we've got passion, chaos, courage, knowledge, insight, clarity, wisdom, as we keep on talking about throughout papers past 2 days. So I pulled out these 5, and each gameplay has one that is held as its dominant temperament. Another thing that I've had a look at is the character archetype itself. So though you might have a gameplay temperament, each character within them also has its own archetype that it follows. So these 6 archetypes are very common spiritual personas that we see across gameplay. And why it's important to distinguish between, the archetype itself of a character to the gameplay mechanics. It's because the martyr archetype will have a very different gameplay when you engage in a world that's built on intensity and reaction, opposed to one that's built on narrative and emotional world building. And so this next slide, we get a bit more into the topic of specific formational topics. So we've looked at character archetype and the game mechanics. There's also one of formation profile. Now, this is epic. I understand it's a lot of information, but I need it to put there so you understand where these thoughts are coming from. So there are 9 key elements of spiritual formation. That's what I've used as a base to look at the spiritual formation in games. These can be looked at as internal and external variances. And they kind of look at three vague structures. So your intrinsic work, the cosmic, so that transcendence kind of work, and your affinity, so that relationship within the game itself. How do you build connection? So all of these have their own rating. And then I've done a quick little like circle one to kind of encompass all of that there as well. Alongside that, I've looked at specific sacred practices that are traditional Christian disciplines and looked at how they appear within the game as well. So this might not be a conscious thing. This is just a subconscious element of gaming, but the actual disciplined practices that we ask people to walk within their faith. But also, what does it mean that this is happening beyond the walls of specific discipline and just happening in everyday gaming format? With all of this, I have also given something called a hair alignment, which is just what I like to think. So I'm pastoral hair. It's how I like to look at it. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. Apologies. So what these all look at is the four of those and what it's encompassed in each. So I'm going to quickly go through some so you can see how it works. If it's too much information on a page, for those who are gamers among us, it's a very normal character sheet. If you are not a gamer, in the bottom right-hand corner is the hair alignment, which gives you a good overview of all of these things coming together. So I'm looking at our top 4 favorite games first, and I'll go through them really quickly because I know time is of the essence. But I think it's important that we have a good link at games that we might know as academics, through to parents, through to just people who live in the 21st century. So the top 4 favorites to look at: Minecraft. Everyone loves good Minecraft. It's having a resurgence again. So here we can see that we actually have a pilgrimage kind of model. It models pretty much all of our sacred practices except for confession and repentance. It holds quite a high level of affinity, so that connection with community and beyond oneself. And all in all, it gets a hair alignment of 8.6, which is pretty high. It's currently, I think, the second highest one that there is out of the ones I've looked at. We also have Roblox. I noticed that yesterday we had a Roblox image popped up, so I thought I'd make sure we include that because it's in the top 10 common games today. Ironically, this actually gets a really lower. It's really quite common, but it's only giving a 6.6. So though we might have a really high connection with affinity and relationship and building and all that kind of stuff, we actually have a very low cosmic connection. So it doesn't ask us to look beyond ourselves or have a transcendent experience or let us question maybe there's something beyond humanity, or whether that's divine or what that might be. So it has a really low form there. I'm going to shift on to the next. Sorry, it's going to be quite quick. There's 2 more in this little section. So Fortnite, if you know gaming, you know Fortnite. If you know teenagers, if you know 7-year-olds, you know Fortnite. So Fortnite gets a 5.6. It is intense, it's reactive, but it actually has really low levels of sacred practices in them. And it really doesn't call us beyond that transcendence of self. Also, that mindfulness and presence is low, and purpose and calling is quite low as well. The Sims, a classic one. It's again been redeveloped. So you can see there it's at 8.2. What I love about The Sims is it hits every single sacred marker, and it should, because it's a God sim. Like, it's supposed to actually encourage us to look in that space of what does it mean to exist in those middle grounds, the liminal spaces of transcendence. So those 4 are those common ones through. I just wanted to point out 2 other ones about something really weird that happens where what games are played can help us understand what world events are shaping in people. And why I wanted to point this out was at the start of the global pandemic, I don't know about the rest of the world, but Australia was really locked down. And me and a couple of others here, we're in Melbourne. We're in the most locked down city of the globe. So we spent a lot of time inside. And Animal Crossing was the saving grace pretty much for anybody who wanted some sanity. So it was quite high. It's giving us connection, giving us this idea of what it means to build a world, to be a healer, to have community and soul, and be able to connect and be. And then right at the end of the pandemic, the end of the lockdown, sorry. So we're talking 2 years worth of lockdown. The game that everyone was all up for was Among Us. and like it's like imminent death. You are trying to decipher who is the mole among you and killing everybody, and you just decide that you want out. Like this is low level of spiritual formation. It is just quick, punchy party game. Let's get things going. So our world events can also show us what practices people are drawn to when it comes to gaming and why this happens. Oh, I'll be quick. We got 2 minutes. I just want to put in some couple of things. So myself and Odd Rev, who is here, it's Will Nicholas is their I suppose in-person name. But we hang out on Sonderverse and we do streaming, and part of that is streaming some games. And so we've looked at this in the conversations that come up from it as well. And so one game that I love streaming is called Spiritfarer. And it's no doubt it's got the highest hair alignment of 9.4. Which I already loved it. And then I ran it through this little algorithm thing that I've kind of made. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. This makes sense to why it's so high and why I enjoy it and the conversations it brings up in terms of spiritual exploration and community. The other one is that myself and Odd Rev, we stream a game together called Split Fiction. It also has quite a high spiritual connection as well. And this is a co-op game. You actually cannot play it unless you are partnered with another person. And so this idea that gaming is escaping from reality, it really depends on to what level. Like if it's to still explore and benefit and grow, then it actually has really heightened effective connections to creativity and imagination and your spirituality. So, ooh, my scroll bar is a real thing. Let me click back before I jump into this. Oh, I'll hold it. I'll hold it here. Wanted to finish with some good old streaming so you know what we do. But before I get there, I just want to point out that creativity and imagination gaming is a really meaningful space where faith and identity and spiritual reflection are actively being shaped. And so we're invited to wrestle with morality and purpose and grief, belonging and transformation. And experiences long held at the center of spiritual formation are deeply active just in the very mechanics of gaming. And so we should not overlook it or dismiss it because the role of gaming is holding together spiritual development for society. And what we really need to ask as, I suppose, religious institutions, theologians, people who are just faithful followers of Christ is what does this mean in terms of how we engage in that and how do we actively be disciples within this world? And so if we are being formed by this, then we must be present in the gaming space and arena. We must be listening, learning, and participating with intention. And so to finish off, I just wanted to throw out there just a little quick gameplay moment, just so you can see, I think it's a minute, of what it's kind of like. So that's it. And thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of what it's like to hang out with us when we stream on Twitch.